So you're ready to sit down and get your Etsy keywords all buttoned up. But should you use Marmalead or a source for Google SEO like Google Keyword Planner? Stick around while we talk about the purposes of both in this episode of The Jam.
I'm Lisa.
I'm Jade.
I'm Gordon.
I'm Richie, and this is The Jam with Team Marmalead. So what is Marmalead? Is it a set of tools? Is it a resource? Is it education? Yes. Yes, it is. It's all of those. Marmalead helps you grow your sales with real shopper keywords. We use machine learning to take the guesswork out of getting found on Etsy. So if you have an Etsy shop and you want your listings to be found first by shoppers, you want them to show up in the right places where shoppers have an opportunity to buy them, then you want Marmalead. You want the keywords we have, and you want the education and the community around Marmalead to help you get there. Now you can check out Marmalead at marmalead.com, and that is marmalead.com. See you there.
All right, guys. So what are we talking about today?
Well, today we're going to be talking about Google Keyword Planner and Marmalead and what they both do, how they both work, but probably most importantly, how they're different from one another.
So what does Google Keyword Planner actually do?
So Google Keyword Planner, for people who haven't used it before, is a way to help content creators and advertisers and marketers find the best keywords for their content that they're creating online. So it could be, advertising. They're looking for what keywords to target. It could be marketing. It could be a blog that you're creating and you're trying to find topics to write about. It's kind of a global arching set of keywords that people search for inside of Google with a good sense of how often different keywords come up so that you can know which ones are the most popular to be used across the entire internet.
So maybe, I guess now would be a good time to explain what Marmalead does, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. So Marmalead helps handmade and vintage online sellers find the best keywords for their products to put on Etsy. All right, I wanted to highlight a couple different places that people search, like the top ones, right? So Google is the top search engine for content, right? People want to know how to do something text-based, or we want to do some research, then they're going to go onto Google. And I probably shouldn't have said necessarily how to do something, because YouTube is the number one video search. So you want to know how to change a tire or put a ceiling fan in place of a light fixture? YouTube is the number one search for that. Number one product search for like commodities, paper towels, stuff like that. Anything comes from a big box, Amazon. And I would say the number one for something special, which is what Etsy's going for, whether it be handmade or vintage, Etsy is going to be your number one search for that.
Yeah, and I mean, even that in and of itself is kind of mind-blowing if you stop to think about it, because most people, when you fire up your browser, it either lands you on Google's homepage because that's how people have their stuff set up, or if you just type straight into that address bar, whatever you're searching for, your search is going to come up through Google. So by default, a lot of things are just going to go straight into Google because that's where people are searching. But for product search to be number one means that anytime someone's shopping for something, they don't even go to Google. They don't bother with just typing it into the address bar. They go straight to Amazon and do their search there before, even looking at results. And the same thing for how to do something for YouTube. They go straight to YouTube and they're doing the search there. They're not going to Google and searching how to change a tire and then clicking on a YouTube video for the answer. Richie's saying they're going straight to YouTube for that information. So that's kind of mind-blowing when you stop to think about it.
Especially if you're on your phone. So if you're in the moment doing something, which, I don't know about you guys, but when I am with people and we're talking about like how to maybe do something, someone always whips out their phone, opens up the YouTube app and looks it up and has a video for it. So like you said, they don't even get a chance to go to Google or somewhere else to do it, because if you're going straight to the app, whether it be the YouTube app, the Etsy app, or the Amazon app, right, you're skipping Google right from the start.
I think for me, definitely, when I think through what you guys are talking about, for me, Google is where I go for very informational based searches. Like if I need to know how to go somewhere, if I need to know, I don't know, just very informational based stuff, then I'm going to Google to read about that. But if like you were saying earlier, Richie, if I need to know how to do something, then YouTube definitely is where I'm going to go for any of that stuff. Anything on my car, anything electronic, again, anything electrical, like home projects, stuff like that, very much YouTube. But if I'm going shopping, then you're right. It's kind of, I'm not going to Google really to figure out what I need to buy. I already know what I'm looking for. So if I'm looking for something handmade or vintage, definitely Etsy. And again, to kind of reiterate what you were saying, if I'm looking for something from a big box store, but I want to sort of figure out the competitive pricing, or I just don't feel like driving to one of the big box stores, then Amazon. So it is interesting that it definitely kind of how you search will determine, or what you're searching for is going to determine which of these search engines you're going to use.
So that's a good segue into talking about how Marmalead and Google Keyword Planner are the same. Now that we've covered kind of the different places that people are going to search and why they're going to be there. So the first point is both are going to give a sense of how many people have searched for a specific keyword, right? So they're both going to give you a number, but one is where they searched on Etsy, one is where they searched on Google. Both are going to give a sense of how much competition there is for a specific keyword. Again, in their own worlds, how much competition there is on the web for Google. And again, we're talking about a lot of content. And then how much competition there is for Etsy, which everything is going to be some piece of a listing. It's not going to be research. It's not going to be an essay. And then, of course, they both provide ideas for other keywords to consider. That is a very big reason, right? It's not just a matter of coming up with, 3 keywords that you look at this and say, okay, I'll call it these 3 things. It's about really brainstorming and coming up with other keyword ideas that people are looking for, again, in their own space.
Yeah, so you might, if you're familiar with Google Keyword Planner and you're familiar with Marmalead, it might be easy to fall into the trap of saying like, well, look, I go here and I put in a keyword and it shows me information. I go here, I put in a keyword, it shows me information. Like, they're doing the same thing. They're showing me the same search numbers. They're showing me competition. Like, it's serving the same purpose. But what we're going to talk about next are 3 very important ways that these 2 tools are very different. The first, and kind of one that we've touched on before about the different places to search, is that they're for different platforms. When you're talking Google, you're talking the entire internet. People that are trying to scour the entire internet for information. When you're talking about Marmalead, it's specific to Etsy. It's specific to the searches and the engagement and the competition that you see on the Etsy platform. Now, Google, when you're out there, there's 3 different categories that a Google search can fall into. And we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier too, but you could be searching for information, a knowledge-based search, right? You could be searching for navigation, how to get somewhere, where a business is, where the nearest CVS is, something like that. Or you could be searching for an action. You could be looking to watch a specific movie online and you want to know where it is. You might be looking to buy something and you want to know, like, look, this isn't obvious to me where, should I be going to Best Buy or Amazon or Etsy or, eBay? What site should I be looking for this thing? I don't know where to buy this. Let me type it into Google and Google is hopefully going to help me point me in the right direction for where to do this. But even that subset of action-based searches, which is like, roughly a third maybe of the searches that come into Google, you're looking at purchasing a handmade or vintage item as a subset of that. So the number of searches that Google sees in a day, the percentage of people that are looking to purchase a handmade or vintage item is super small. Like, it's not what people are going there for to begin with. So when you're looking at keyword data from that source, it's not going to be specific to that purpose. When they're searching a keyword, it's not necessarily because they want to go make a purchase for that keyword, if that makes sense.
It does. It's like what you said, where, a lot of people they open their browser and Google's right there. It's kind of a starting point for using the internet. I mean, some people think that Google, like the internet, lives within Google, and it almost kind of does. Everything is almost kind of in there because it looks at everything. But the thing about that is it gets a lot of noise, right? So you don't really know that intent right up front. You do a Google search and you're going to see stuff from Etsy, from YouTube, from Amazon, from Best Buy, from all these different places. And you kind of go from there, but then you end up somewhere like Etsy, and then you're doing searches there that are more specific. Gordon, you pointed out in our notes that I like to use this birdhouse example. So when you're searching for birdhouse on Google, Google doesn't know what you're doing, right? Are you trying to make a birdhouse, like DIY it? You're looking for some plans? You trying to figure out what kind of birds in your region are going to live in a birdhouse? Or are you just looking up Tony Hawk's brand of birdhouse skateboards, right? Because there's a lot of different reasons why you're going there. So that's a lot of different noise.
Absolutely. So the other thing we want to mention too is that the competition score in Google Keyword Planner is almost completely irrelevant to you as an Etsy shop owner. If you're trying to figure out how competitive a market is or how competitive a certain keyword is on Etsy, that competition score that you're seeing in Google Keyword Planner is more misleading than helpful to you. And that's because it's based on the number of people that are taking out ads against that keyword. It's not based on even the amount of content that's out there targeting that keyword. Google doesn't look and see like, oh, look, this blog is targeting this keyword over here. And then that counts as part of the competition score for that keyword. They're just looking at how many people are paying to target that keyword. How much competition is there for advertising for that keyword?
And I'll use the birdhouse example right there. So if you are actually selling birdhouses or birdhouse plans and they're, lower cost, lower profit margin, and then you have Tony Hawk selling skateboards at a higher price, higher margin, right, for the same keyword birdhouse, and you're sitting there thinking, well, how is somebody paying this much per click with AdWords to sell birdhouses? They're not selling birdhouses. They're selling skateboards. So, like you said, it's completely irrelevant because you're comparing apples and oranges or birdhouses and skateboards.
Absolutely.
Let me jump in real quick to let you know that if you're enjoying this podcast, you should definitely check out our free 3-part mini-series about Etsy SEO. It's designed to take you from what is Etsy SEO to an example of an efficient Marmalead workflow. Check it out at marmalead.com/jam2020.
So a second way that these two tools are different is that if you're using Google Keyword Planner and you need help figuring out what's going on with it, you're trying to figure out your SEO and dial it in. When you're looking for help in that space, in just generic SEO space and Google Keyword Planner space, a lot of the information that's out there that will help you with SEO in general, for your blog, for whatever, is not specific to how Etsy SEO works. So if you're following the advice of people that say, okay, here's how you use Google Keyword Planner, you want to look at these numbers and do these things, this means this and that means that, it's really geared towards what Google Keyword Planner is intending to help you with, which is advertising, marketing, and content creation for the grand scheme of the internet, not your specific handmade or vintage shop that you have online. You remember, this is kind of one of the things that Moz always attacks about Google Keyword Planner, and why they say to use Moz instead of Google Keyword Planner is that the number ranges that they show for like when you type in a keyword and see how many searches something has, it's like a huge swing. It's like 100 to 1,000,000. You're like, okay, great. Like now that I have like 5 keywords that are between 100 and 1,000,000, I don't know like which is better between these ones.
The number of searches, the range is huge.
Yeah.
It's somewhere between this, but the number is so big that it's like, this is either great or it's terrible, especially considering the space where like globally for searches. And the difference there being that Marmalead is going to show you how many searches that keyword is expected to generate in the next 30 days. It's not a, last 90 days, last 30 days, last year, just divided and averaged to be the same every month. It's actually, based on a forecast for next month, no matter what month you're in.
Yeah, which it kind of goes hand in hand too with the seasonality that we show inside of Marmalead as well, because when you're looking at almost any keyword that you're going to do a search for in Marmalead, there's going to be highs and lows throughout the year. It's very rare to find a keyword that's consistent all the way across the board for how many searches it has in every single month. And so looking at an average searches per month or average engagement per month number, something like that, isn't going to help you as much because the keyword has ups and downs. If you're using the average, well, sometimes it's going to be close. Other times you're going to be way off. It's going to be way higher than the average. It's going to be way lower than the average. And so by using Marmalead, you're seeing exactly what we're anticipating that keyword to do in the next 30 days, which is exactly what you want to know when you're applying a keyword to your listing. You don't want to know how it did last month.
Right. And you like to use a weather example for that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not going to like dress and prepare for what the weather was last week. I want to be looking at this week's forecast. I want to know what's going on ahead of me.
Are you telling me that the forecast for December is going to be different than the forecast for July?
Sometimes. It depends where you live, I guess, but but yeah, the weather's a great example because it's one of those things that it's not consistent. It's not the same every single day. Unless you live in, I don't know, like Santa Monica or something like that. Maybe then it might be more similar every single day. But for most of us in the world, there are distinct seasons, distinct temperatures. There's going to be rain and not rain. It's going to change. And obviously you want to be looking at the best information that you have. And that's going to be a local weather forecast for the next 7 days. When you start looking out way ahead, and you're looking at, okay, like I'm planning a vacation, what week of what month should I go? you can look ahead at that kind of things and see the typical rainfall and typical temperatures in those months for wherever you're traveling to, but it's still kind of a guideline and it's not a very precise estimate. You want to know soon in the future, what do things look like?
So would you guys kind of describe this as a which tool to use scenario or a when to use which one? So like, is it either or is it both but at different times?
I mean, I would say it's definitely both at different times. It depends on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to find keywords for your listings on Etsy, I think that Marmalead is a much better choice for that. I might be a little biased, but I think hopefully we've kind of outlined some things to help you see why we think that's true. But, if you're writing a blog and you're trying to find popular keywords that you could be targeting to get more readers to discover your blog organically through search on Google, then Google Keyword Planner is a good choice for that. I wouldn't necessarily go to Marmalead to find keywords for my blog to use. I mean, you could, I guess, right? If you're trying to target people that are searching, these are keywords that, right, people have typed into Etsy to search for something. So they're definitely keywords that people are typing in somewhere. And so you could use those for that, but just know that it's a subset of the whole internet. So if you're trying to target something more globally, Google Keyword Planner for content is a better place to go than Marmalead for content.
Yeah, because people aren't really searching on Etsy for content, right? They're searching for products.
Right.
I mean, yeah, you're definitely going to Etsy to figure out how to get to the nearest Chick-fil-A.
No, that's a good example.
You'd have a tough time.
Another time you'd want to use Google Keyword Planner is if you're purchasing AdWord ads for your Etsy, Shopify, or Amazon shop. So again, you're playing Google's game there, and you're actually using the Google Keyword Planner for what it's intended for, which is to purchase AdWords. So if you're purchasing AdWords, those are going to be pretty good keywords for that because that's exactly what they're intended for.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's kind of like the definitive example of what you'd want to be using Google Keyword Planner for, which is exactly, like you say, what it was designed for. They're going to be showing you the data that is most helpful to you as an AdWords purchaser, which is why Google Keyword Planner falls underneath the set of tools available to people who are using AdWords.
I will also say, though, that AdWords has been criticized for suppressing otherwise good keywords in favor of showing keywords that they want to sell you on AdWords. Whether or not that is true, I am not sure because that is not necessarily, our area of expertise, but those who it is have definitely criticized them for that. So
yeah, no, that's a great thing to mention too, because if you are somebody who's interested in using a tool like Google Keyword Planner to even find AdWords data, there are other tools out there that you might want to consider looking at before you commit to using Google Keyword Planner for that information. Obviously, Google's the one that's selling the ads, and so the way that they're presenting the information, they could kind of skew it to their own benefit. Now, there's like rules and stuff in place where they're not supposed to do those sorts of things, but I mean, who's really policing that? Who's really looking at their algorithms and saying like, oh, look here what you're doing here, guys? It's a very difficult thing to enforce. So kind of leave that up to you when you're doing your own research for finding a good tool for AdWords.
So to kind of bring things full circle here, I would say my takeaway is when you're wanting to use Marmalead, like when you want to find keywords that shoppers are using to find handmade or vintage listings, that would be a place where Marmalead's really going to excel over Google Keyword Planner. Or if you're looking for keyword ideas for your handmade or vintage products, again, Marmalead's going to be the stronger choice there. Or maybe you want to know how many people are, engaging with listings after performing a search for a specific keyword. Again, I think Marmalead is going to be the stronger choice there. So, yeah, anything to add there?
I would just say that you're right, Lisa. I think engagement's a huge component of it. You can't find an engagement number on Google Keyword Planner for how many people are actually engaging with handmade and vintage listings online. I don't think they even show you how many people are engaging with the content provided once people perform searches for those keywords. I think it's strictly search and competition. And then I think they show like a price, average price for an ad against one of those keywords. So it's really important to understand within that engagement space. And we have a whole separate episode where we talk about search versus engagement, but just to kind of touch on it a little bit here, you need to know that people are continuing to move down that purchase path instead of just doing a search and then bailing. So that's why engagement's kind of something that you definitely want to keep an eye on.
Right. It's the search being shown in a search is like being, hey, would you like to learn more about this? And not clicking it, not engaging is like saying, nope, not interested. I'm not here for that. And then clicking is like, yeah, I'm interested. Tell me more. Show me more about that. I might take that home.
So hopefully kind of going through these things, if you weren't familiar with Google Keyword Planner, or if you've used it in the past and you're kind of curious about the differences, maybe you've heard people talking about one versus the other, where to go for keyword numbers, search suggestions, things like that. Hopefully the stuff that we talked about today helps clear up a little bit of how those tools are similar to one another and how they're different from one another as well.
Something that I think is interesting that you pointed out, Gordon, is basically the competition data for Google Keyword Planner is irrelevant. They don't have engagement data. And so really all you have is search, and it's got a bunch of noise in search.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like Marmalead is a pretty clear choice for Etsy related keyword planning and market research, just because so much of what you get in Google Keyword Planner is going to be completely irrelevant for you.
Yeah. I mean, Google's trying to build a good quality free tool that people can use to find information about AdWords and which keywords to target and get started with AdWords campaigns. And that's kind of their goal, and everything they do is around that. They're not trying to make the best, handmade vintage e-commerce tool for finding keywords that's out there. They're completely different goals of the two platforms.
Yeah, I was going to say, we use an example a lot about Marmalead being like an axe that helps you, do the job of chopping firewood. And it feels like maybe if you're, using Google Keyword Planner to choose keywords for your Etsy shop, it's a little bit like trying to, chop firewood with a handheld hacksaw. Like you've got something that will help you get the job done, but it'll take forever and be completely inefficient. And it'll just be really difficult to use in that particular job.